As you have seen in previous videos, we have been building our own custom multi-VM blockchain where you can execute smart contracts written in Solidity, JavaScript, Python, Golang, Rust, AssemblyScript, and these contracts are composable with one another. We have done this through using compilers, transpilers, and interpreters. And we've realized that using some of these techniques, we can bring the Ethereum virtual machine and Solidity contracts to any CosmWasm chain without changing the chain. So today I will demo the first prototype. We are writing a Solidity contract that we will compile to EVM bytecode with the Sol-C compiler, and we will be using Remix for this part. The EVM bytecode is then transpiled to a CosmWasm compatible WebAssembly module that can be deployed on any CosmWasm chain. And we start in Remix, where we have a simple storage contract that writes and reads an integer value to and from the chain storage. Now, we compile this contract and then copy the bytecode. And then we will paste the bytecode here. So here I have some Go code that uses the EVM to CosmWasm transpiler package that I wrote, and I will be running this to create the WebAssembly module. So now we see in this build folder some various WebAssembly and WebAssembly text files, and we will be using this code CW WebAssembly file. Now, I have a local chain running here that is simply the WasmD base CosmWasm chain. So I just cloned this basic Cosmos SDK app with CosmWasm and ran it as a local chain. And I have a dApp that allows me to work with CosmWasm contracts, and this dApp is connected to Kepler. So this is our local WasmD chain and the RPC that we are using. So I'm going to upload the contract. So we go into the build directory and select the code.cw-wasm file, because the code.wasm file is actually an eWasm contract that works on our Mythos chain. So we upload this contract. And now we have a receipt here. We can even get this transaction hash and go to our Explorer for the local chain and see this address and see the base64 encoded WASM bytecode. So we have a code ID of 32. And now this code ID was filled in here. We give a label to the contract, and the instantiation message needs to have a data field, and then here we will have the base64 encoded EVM call data that needs to be sent to the simple storage contract. So this will just be, we will use this tooling to get a hex value transformed to base64, and this is just us initializing the smart contract with a initial value, and this will be 9. So we are going to copy this and place it in the data field, and we just instantiate the contract. And now we have a contract address that has already been filled in here, so we can use it. and we can look at the transaction hash. Okay, and we see the CosmWasm instantiate contract message with the label and the initial data, and we see the contract address also. So now we can interact with the contract. And the first thing that we do is we want to query the initial value that at this point in time should be 9. So let's go in Remix and actually deploy a contract, and we call get here. So let's copy the input that was given, which is the call data with the function signature for the get method, and we go here and paste it, and now we get this base 64 encoded value and place it here. So now we press on the query button and we get the answer. So we will take this and see that the answer is 9, which is what we expect. So now let's do a transaction. Let's set a value, and we will want to set a value of 5. So we copy the call data. Again, we paste it here, and we get the base 64 encoded value, and we update the value here, and this is a transaction. So we are going to execute this data on the WasM contract, and we are now waiting for the transaction to be mined, and it was mined, and we can take a look at the transaction. It is a message execute contract with the data that we've provided, and it was executed correctly. So now we again need the call data for the get function. Okay, we query and we get a different result that we can copy, and we have the result 6. So we have just executed transactions and queried a contract that was written in Solidity. In future videos, we will see more complex demos that cover trickier app codes to emulate, like call and create. And for this, we will be using another technique, an EVM interpreter. Subscribe if you want to see if it is possible to fully emulate EVM on CosmWasm.